We're going to start with our 2-minute opening of Long Beach Vice Mayor Rex Richardson. Go ahead, Rex.
Thank you. Well, first, let's hear it for Shannon Ross and the San Pedro Democratic Club for hosting this forum today. Thank you for having me. I'm Long Beach Vice Mayor Rex Richardson. I'm a lifelong Democrat, a husband, and a dad. My 2 daughters are sitting right over there with my wife, so I promise I'll be on my best behavior this afternoon. I am grateful for Long Beach. It provided me with an opportunity to put down roots and build a family. And like most families, I want to raise my children in a community that is healthy, safe, and thriving. Growing up, my family moved around a lot. And I loved watching my mom work so hard for minimum wage during the day and as a caregiver by night to give me and my siblings a better shot at life. Let's hear it for all the caregivers we have here with us today. As a parent, I want to provide my kids with everything they need to live a healthy and thriving life. But the hard truth is the life expectancy in our city for a kid that grows up in my neighborhood is 17 years shorter than other neighborhoods in town. And as a parent, and as a council member, that is unacceptable. That's why I ran for city council. As a council member representing North Long Beach, I've seen the power of what residents can do when they work together. We've transformed the conversation from beating the odds to changing the odds. By working together, we built the Michelle Obama Neighborhood Library. We restored 40 acres of open space and cleaned our air quality. We created the city's Office of Equity to shift our culture at City Hall, and we've proven that when we work together, we can overcome any challenge we face. I'm running for mayor to bring that same spirit of inclusion and unity to our entire city. Our city's been tested. By working together, we can recover from COVID-19. We can help move our unhoused neighbors off the street. We can prioritize the health and safety of every resident, no matter the neighborhood you live in. I believe our best days are ahead of us. And as mayor, I'll work hard every day to make our collective vision possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, Long Beach City Council member Suzie Price.
Thank you, Shannon, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Suzie Price. I was born in America, but my family is from the country of Iran. And as a baby, my mother and I went back to Iran, and I immigrated here when I was 7 years old. I learned how to speak the language when I arrived, and my mother, who was a nurse in Iran, learned how to pass all of her board exams to become a nurse here in America. We had to make the very difficult decision, as many immigrants like us were doing from that country, to leave behind my sister and my father, who I didn't see for 21 years. I grew up with a hardworking single mom who worked a hospital nurse job at night, and during the day, she earned the right to become a school nurse, and she ended up retiring after 40 years as a member of UTLA. My mother taught me the hard work that's required to make sacrifices to protect your family. Her spirit of service has taught me to have service as a primary goal in my life. I went to Cal State Long Beach. I earned my bachelor's and my master's degree, and then I went on to law school. My first year in law school, I had an opportunity to intern on a case involving a sexual assault victim. I knew then that I wanted to dedicate my life to fighting for people who did not have a voice, people who did not know the systems they were operating in, and people who needed a helping hand to make sure justice and fairness were impacted in their lives. I've been a prosecutor for 22 years, serving in that capacity. I ran for city council 7 years ago, and I represent the 3rd District of Long Beach. My primary goal in service has been constituent needs and making sure that every resident in the city has a city that they can have pride in. We all work very hard to make our families proud and to do right by them in terms of the life that we've been able to provide for them. In the last 7 years, I've had the opportunity to consistently fund our first responders and advocate for more resources for our first responders because every resident wants to feel safe. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you, Council Member. Okay. We're going to go right into our questions, and our first question is coming from President of the Wrigley Area Neighborhood Alliance and LACDP member, Joan Greenwood. Thank you, Joan.
Good afternoon. This is a 2-part question, and it's long, so pay attention. How would you improve the relationship between city departments and neighborhood organizations on hot-button issues like homeless housing, both temporary and permanent, SB 9 and SB 10 that take away local housing control from the City Council, and the current land use element to the general plan that would Okay. And what would your position be on forming elected neighborhood councils to study and make recommendations with teeth to the city planning and other departments?
Thank you so much, Joan. We're going to rotate back and forth. There's only 2 of you, so Susie, you can go ahead, council member, since you have the microphone already.
Thank you, and thank you, Joan. Community engagement is critical on all of those hot button issues. As a city, we went through the LUE together, and as a council, I went through the CSIP, Southeast Area Specific Plan, together with my residents. I walked side by side with them, literally in neighborhoods, talking about density, what would work and what wouldn't work. I also very much believe that local control is important, very important, critical to the future of our city. In fact, I was the only council person who wrote a letter asking our state delegation to reconsider SB 9 and allow for more local control, especially in a city like Long Beach, where we're doing such a good job trying to keep up with our housing needs and our housing mandates. In terms of neighborhood councils, I would absolutely be open to looking at them. But after what I heard in the first speech, first debate that went on, it sounds like that system itself is broken. So we would have to really evaluate what that looks like for the city of Long Beach. But our departments have to engage with communities earlier. Communities need to be brought to the table before the ideas are formed so that we know what is important and what we need to be looking out for. We can't be making changes at the 11th hour. There are residents now that are finding about zoning changes that happened in the LUE that they didn't realize were slipped in at the last minute. That's not okay. That should never happen. I'm proud of the fact that as a council member in a district that doesn't generally embrace change, we were able to create an LUE and a CSIP specific plan that allows for 10% of the state's RENA requirement in the city of Long Beach to be placed in the 3rd district. That was not easy work. That was community work. And we engaged our residents every step of the way. That's my style. That's what I'm good at. It's my strength. And I will make sure as mayor that the residents are engaged early before it's too late for changes to be made.
Thank you so much, council member. Okay, Vice Mayor Rex Richardson.
As a leader, I tend to go back to my roots as a community organizer. I personally believe that a community is not made up of statistics or your reputation. A community is made up of people. And when the people are hurting, the community hurts. When the people are thriving, the community thrives. That's why I believe in the community empowerment model. When I was a chief of staff to Councilman Steve Neal and a first-term council member, we went back to our organizing roots. We organized 13 neighborhood associations to give the voice to all of our neighbors in our city. And what did we talk to them about? Their interests, what their concerns are. I represented a community that was the only district in the city that had no bank. It had no coffee shop. It had no library, but we were the largest district by population. How did we change all that? We were the only district without a paramedic. Our response times were 3 minutes slower. We changed all of that by working together. We instituted a program called participatory budgeting and trained up and built the capacity for our local residents to be able to advocate for themselves. And today, if you look at what we've been able to do, it shows you that everything we do, we should center on the experiences of our residents. When we build up the capacity and the leadership of our residents, they can speak for themselves. They make our jobs as leaders easier because they know exactly what they want and they're the most invested and interested in getting to the quickest solution to the problem. As mayor, I'm gonna stick with my organizing roots. I'm gonna make sure that we empower neighborhood associations into planning decisions, like into how we address the problems and the challenges of our community. I know this because we've done it. We did this with UpPlan, or Uptown Planning Land Use and Neighborhood Strategy, that got rid of liquor stores and motels and invested into things the community needed, like community centers and parks and libraries. As mayor, that's the kind of leadership that I'm gonna show, a community empowerment model. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Richardson. We are going to go on to our next question, which is coming from ILWU Local 94 PAC member and San Pedro Democratic Club officer, Mickey Chavez. Mickey, are you with us?
I'm right here.
All right.
Hello, council members. With Total Terminals planning on automating Pier T at the Port of Long Beach, would you support that no taxpayer money or port funds be utilized for any infrastructure necessary for zero manning automation?
Thank you so much, Mickey. Okay, we are going to start with Vice Mayor Rex Richardson. Go ahead.
Thank you for that question. Long Beach has tremendous resources and tremendous opportunities. But for far too long, our economic power has really been placed on the backs of our local Long Beach families. And I don't think that we should judge our economic success without factoring in the economic impact on local jobs. So as the port continues to grow and electrify, we have to make sure that we do it in a way that protects local jobs. That's why I led the study on automation at the Long Beach City Council to make sure any investments that we make in our Long Beach City Council, we ensure that we are not automating away jobs that are important for local families. I also serve as chair of the Marine Ports Committee at South Coast Air Quality Management District. I've led the charge to make sure that we insert anti-automation language into anything that we do as it relates to programming at the Port of Long Beach and the Port of Los Angeles. And so I believe in making sure that working families have a seat at the table and the opportunity to thrive. As mayor, I'm going to continue my focus on economic inclusion, making sure that workers have a voice and a seat at the table. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Suzie Price.
Thank you. Let me answer your question. No, I would not support any public funding of automation that eliminates jobs. 1 in 5 jobs in the city of Long Beach are related to the port. 700,000 jobs in the state of California are related to the port. 2.6 million jobs throughout the nation are related to our port complex. We have to invest the public monies into automation and technology that allows for additional jobs, skilled jobs, but additional jobs. I chair the Alameda Corridor Transportation Authority. I've been doing that for 6 years now. The investment that we're making in the port into the new rail system, that $2 billion investment, is going to be huge because that's going to ensure jobs for the men and women of our waterfront. They're going to have jobs based on additional rail, and we've been supporting that through the Alameda Corridor Transportation Authority. Electrification that requires manned or woman-manned labor to monitor it and make sure that it's efficient will guarantee jobs. We need to do everything that we can to provide training for the new jobs. Those two things, the rail and the electrification that's manned, are going to preserve jobs. For moving forward, cost efficiency for an operator does not mean more efficiency. It's about throughput for me. The question I would be asking is, what is the throughput? 20 million TEUs were moved by the men and women of our waterfront in 2021 during COVID. They should be commended for that. There is no study out there, and I've read a lot of them because people that know me know I like to read a lot of studies, no study that says automation is better for the port in terms of throughput. And that's something that we have to factor into with every decision that we make about investments in technology. New technology is great, but making sure that our labor force is skilled labor force that can adapt and help man and supervise the projects that are coming with the new technology is going to be critical, and our new training center will allow us to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Okay, we're going to move right along. This is way quicker than having 4 up here, so feels a little different, but thank you. Kathy Familetti is going to ask a question on behalf of Avance Democratic Club.
Thank you. Homelessness is a major issue affecting many cities in the region, including Long Beach. What do you plan to do in your first year as mayor to address this issue directly?
With me?
Go ahead, you can go.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So we have already started investing in homeless solutions, but the solutions that we've invested in and the resources that we've allocated to homelessness in the city of Long Beach are completely inadequate to solve the problem. We have 2,000 homeless individuals in the city of Long Beach. I was proud to be part of the homeless count last Thursday. I can tell you that a number of 2,000 is not an insurmountable number. We can tackle that number, but not in the way that we're doing right now. We currently have 2 reach teams, which comprised of behavioral behavioral health and medical health experts. And they'll go out and they'll conduct outreach. 2 teams for a city of 500,000 with 2,000 unhoused individuals is not the solution to the problem. And they work Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 5. They don't work at night and they don't work over the weekends. We need to have a reach team for each council district, and they need to do directed outreach. I'm doing it every day. I'm not just talking about it in my career job, working with healthcare agencies and nonprofits to ensure that they're doing directed outreach. It takes 17 touch points for a person to accept a service. If we have directed outreach and those touch points are daily over a 2-week period of time, the chances of someone accepting services is much higher. And we're just not investing that resource and that energy into the situation before us. We have a public health and public safety crisis with homelessness, and we cannot allow people to continue to live in parks and continue to live on streets and in front of businesses. My husband and I are small business owners. We understand the stress for everybody involved with trying to figure out solutions. But the problem can be easily solved within the first year as me being mayor by additional reach teams and making sure we have directed outreach. We also need to do everything we can to have a dispatch system. Police should not be responding to homelessness. That is not what the police should be doing. We need to have our outreach teams respond to homelessness and to build the level of trust and credibility that's needed to get people to accept a service. It works. I see it every day. I'm a mayoral candidate who's not just talking about the things I want to do, I'm actually doing them with a proven record. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. Okay, Long Beach Vice Mayor Rex Richardson.
Thank you. I know how important it is to have housing. I mentioned it earlier. My family moved around a lot when I was a kid. I remember moving here to California in a Greyhound bus, my single mom, my older sister, my younger brother. When we got here, we had a 2-bedroom apartment. My mom had 1 bedroom. My little brother and my older sister had 1, and I slept on the couch. We all worked. I worked at Jack in the Box. My mom worked at Arby's. My sister worked at the local stationery shop. The truth is, there are too many families in Long Beach just like mine, living 1 paycheck away from being on the street. And everybody who's on the street is someone's sister or mother or brother. So this is personal for me, and we need to understand that it's going to take a lot more than rhetoric. I've put forward a number of actions in our city. When we were having we initially had a homeless crisis, the city council stepped up and said, we need to build a shelter. No one raised their hand. I raised my hand and said, I'll build the city's first municipal shelter. It stands today, the Atlantic Bridge community, serving 125 families every day. That's what we've done. I also know that through the homeless count, we know every year that 50% of the people living on our streets are dealing with economic crisis. So there's no issue, there's no response to addressing homelessness without talking about poverty in our city and wages and making sure people have access to housing. And on the other hand, the other 50%, it's behavioral health, mental health, drug addiction. Well, guess what? We have our own health department. We're doing a lot. I led the charge to create a nonviolent crisis response called REACH in our city. I led the charge to do that. But on the other hand, how are we going to address the mental health crisis on our streets? Well, Long Beach has its own health department, but we don't have our own mental health department. As mayor, within the first 100 days, I'm going to call to create a Long Beach mental health department and partner with our supervisor, Janice Hahn, who's supporting my campaign. We're going to work together to create our own local response to mental health. Because the reality is, we can't address housing and homelessness without building housing, and we need to invest in the quality of life, step-down facilities, mental health resources to help our families who are on the street get the service they need to get off the streets. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Mayor Richardson. We are going to move on to our next question. Former Long Beach City Councilwoman Tonya Uranga, are you with us? Thank you, Tonya.
I am a Long Beach resident and a proud resident of the 7th District, the mighty 7th. It is on the west side of town, if any of you have ever been to the west side of Long Beach. And it is, we have some of the same problems that we share with Wilmington and San Pedro. So my question is, what do you see as the most pressing environmental justice issue facing our diverse communities? And how do you plan to address it?
So I'll go first. First of all, thanks so much for the question. I mentioned earlier that we have a great disparity in life expectancy in our city, and I think that's unacceptable. My kids live in that area, and they're growing up, and we all want the very same things for our children to grow up leading healthy lives. But we can't do so unless we change some systemic racism related to air quality in our communities, specifically related to the diesel trucks that are coming in and out of our port. I've worked hard since joining the council to make sure that we have a voice, local families. Last year, I took a step and became the first person since you, Councilwoman, in 10 years to serve on the Air Quality Management District. And we worked hard to identify resources to turn around and clean up the trucks in our communities. We also established, to clean our air, we established the first of its kind rule on refineries, a command and control rule on refineries in a way that reduces historic levels of pollution. We also moved forward with a historic warehouse rule, a rule on warehouses that makes sure that warehouses that are popping up on the west side of Long Beach and in North Long Beach are held accountable for the dirty trucks that are attracted into those warehouses, to make sure that that although there's economic impact, it's not on the backs of frontline communities. The other thing that I'm working on is to make sure, and I've been advocating for a long time, to make sure that our ports and our AQMD have a working memorandum of understanding to make sure that we are investing in the cleanest technology. And I authored an op-ed calling our port to establish a container fee. That container fee will go to accelerate trucks. So we anticipate that's going to generate about $90 million a year to turn around diesel trucks. I believe in making sure that we use the best technology, have electric trucks and all these other things that clean up the air in the immediate term. So the most significant thing that we can do is hold our ports accountable to cleaning the air that impact our communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor. Okay, Councilmember Suzie Price.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. There's really two different responses. The first is environmental justice, when we're talking about it in the area around the port, has its own significance that needs to be addressed. The port adopted its cap in 2005, and they've updated it twice. There's been tremendous investment in technology that has reduced air quality issues and also improved water quality issues as a result of the port's changes. Technology such as shore power has helped reduce a lot of the emissions, and that technology needs to continue to grow. But as a city, we need to support the port in their efforts, but also we need to do our part to create more open spaces, plant more trees, and make sure that residents that are living alongside the port and around the port have that open space and outdoor activities and recreational opportunities so that they can have the best quality of life. The second environmental justice issue that's addressing the entire city, we have a very diverse city in terms of environmental issues, climate change and sea level rise. Climate change is affecting our entire city in terms of the increase in the climates and the heat issues that we have, and having to create more opportunities for solar power, EV charging, more open spaces, more urban vegetation, and sea level rise, of course, protecting our coast. We are a coastal city. We cannot ignore the fact that sea level rise is presenting major challenges and that we need to be planning in advance for sea level rise and making sure that we're proactive in the plans that we adopt for cities development and for private sector development to account for sea level rise. These are important issues that are impacting our city, and we have to take the short, mid, and long-term goals that have been identified by the Climate Action Adaptation Plan and be serious about investing in them. We need to invest resources and not just talk about those changes that need to happen in order to make sure that every resident in the city of Long Beach has the city that's advocating for them to have the best quality of life in terms of environmental impacts. I am proud to chair the Port, Transportation, and Infrastructure Committee, where we're talking about these issues.
Thank you, Council Member. Okay, thank you, Tonya. We appreciate you coming over here and asking a question. Our next question is coming from a member of the ILWU Southern California District Council, David Ross Jr. David?
Good afternoon. This unprecedented opportunity for growth and expansion at our ports has been hampered by policymakers that aren't always qualified to address the opportunity created by this crisis. As mayor of Long Beach, you have the power to appoint harbor commissioners. Will you commit to appointing qualified independent individuals that understand how the port functions, and whose work will truly benefit every stakeholder in Long Beach, including the protection of millions of jobs in this region?
Thank you, David. That's an excellent question. The answer is absolutely. The Harbor Commission should not be used as an opportunity to pay back political favors. It should be an opportunity for us to build a commission filled with industry experts who can advise the entire staff as well as the city council on what it is that the port needs to enhance and better its operations. As a member of the Alameda Corridor Transportation Authority, I can tell you it's taken me 6 years. I'll be honest with you. My professional career has been outside of politics. Supply chain and goods movement is not my area of expertise. It has taken me 6 years to learn the business of Alameda Corridor Transportation Authority. That type of expertise is known by the men and women of the waterfront better than anyone in this room. We can talk about it all day long, but nobody knows what the needs of the port are other than the stakeholders who are stationed there every day. And it would be my honor and my pleasure to have a member of the working group of people who know the needs of the port as a representative on the Harbor Commission, at least one, if not more, to help guide me and others on what the port needs and how we need to maneuver that together as we move into a new era of technology, as we move into an era where there are uncertainties about goods and supply chain. And so I welcome that opportunity, and the short answer is yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So absolutely. What I know from serving on city council and living in Long Beach is that if you don't have a seat at the table, you typically wind up on the menu. I've seen how it works when we have a lack of representation. I want to make sure that our port has experts, but also has community representation on that harbor. Make sure people understand what it's like to live in West Long Beach or the harbor area. I want to make sure that workers consistently have representation on that harbor commission. That means port workers have a seat at the table and an opportunity to weigh in on the decisions that impact all of our economics. The port has a tremendous responsibility to our region. 43% of all trade comes through our combined seaports. But that means we need to make sure that we are being responsible as it relates to the technology that we use, maintaining our competitive advantage, making sure that we are being thoughtful about our neighbors, particularly on the west parts of Long Beach, Wilmington, San Pedro. And we need to make sure that, and that's what we've done. I mean, we've made sure that we have on the Port of Long Beach representation from, experts as well as workers. And I'm proud to have the support of the chair of our Harbor Commission, Councilman Steve Neal, who came up as a labor champion through the LA County Federation of Labor, and make sure that he actually speaks up and represents those workers. And so we have to make sure that we're being thoughtful about who we select and appoint. I think the staff is incredibly important too. I think, when we think about the staff and the executive directors at the port, we should think about industry and maintaining our competitive advantage, but we should also make sure we're having people who are local and actually care about our local communities. And that's why I'll make sure that we continue to have representation on our port executive staff that lives here in our Port Harbor area and cares about the impacts of our ports on our local communities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. We have one last question, and that's Jessica Quintana, Executive Director of Centro Cha. Did I say that correct, Jessica? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Centro Cha, the Long Beach Community Hispanic Association. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I've been living in the great city of Long Beach for over 54 years and operating the largest Latino serving agency for 20. So it's a pleasure to be here. Gosh, so much. Latinos represent the highest number of workers in the city of Long Beach. We create over 8 jobs, not just in the city, but in the region through our highest population of workers, but the lowest wages earners. And so we all just see the devastation of the pandemic and how that hit the Latino community and other communities of color as well, but the highest we know recorded were Latinos. With the Latino community almost reaching 50% in the city of Long Beach, what do you see some of the challenges and benefits that you see ahead?
Councilmember Price, I think
I answered the last question first, but I'm happy to go first.
I apologize. No,
Sure.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you for the question. What I'll tell you is what we saw over the course of the past 2 years is that when it rains in America, it pours in the Latino and Black communities. COVID-19, the impact wasn't equal. We saw that communities that are predominantly Latino had a more significant impact. They were hospitalized at a higher rate because they live in areas that are already impacted by historic institutional racism, poor air quality, lack of access to hospitals, and other things. And so in Long Beach, we stepped forward. We made sure that we had access to testing and vaccinations, particularly in the communities that we live in. We stepped forward because we know that the economic impact wasn't equal as well. People who made a good amount of money, they bounce back pretty quickly. It's called a K-shaped recovery. But people who are low-wage workers, which tend to be Latinos and Black families, took a lot longer to get back on track. They were more, they had a more significant impact as it related to being laid off and jobs not being considered essential and losing their homes. So I believe in economic inclusion. I believe that the way we judge our success as a city can no longer just be based on things like throughput. I think we have to think about how everyone has an opportunity to thrive in our city. So I've supported things that protect low-wage service workers. During the pandemic, we saw that we stepped forward for grocery workers. We stepped forward to protect hotel worker jobs. Historically, we stepped up for working women in our city. When we had, issues as it relates to detention and immigration enforcement in our communities, Long Beach stepped forward and we passed the Immigrant Defense Fund in our city, and we partnered with your institution to make those things happen. To me, as a father, particularly a father of two Afro-Latina Puerto Rican babies, the Latino future is my future, and I think that the moment that we begin to acknowledge and that it's not okay for certain communities to thrive and the rest of us to not thrive, it's not okay unless all of us have a seat at the table and an opportunity to thrive in our city. That means we have to talk about issues like race. It's okay to bring up race. When I came up in the city of Long Beach,
Thank you,
race
Vice
was
Mayor.
taboo. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Let me talk specifically about our Latino community. We have over 40%, almost 50, like you said, of our community is Latino. We should never have a conversation about equity and inclusion without half of the other side of that conversation being the Latino community. Yes. We need to understand, you asked about benefits and challenges. I'll tell you what the benefits are. And I know because my mother helped hundreds of women who were immigrants to this country like her become school nurses for LA Unified School District. Well, the benefits of the Latino community, some of the hardest workers you'll ever meet. They want to do right by their families. They want to provide good homes for their families. And so many of them are, especially our immigrant families, living in the shadows of our economy right now. And unfortunately, the work that they're doing, given the challenges that we have right now with affordability and access, are making it harder and harder for them. I think it's very important as we think about the city of Long Beach to think about how do we make sure that the Latino voice is at the table. One of the ways we do that is working with verified nonprofits like Central Cha to provide services that the city is not providing to our Latino community. The other thing we need to do is be engaged, not just talk about things. Every single day in my career job, I help victims of crime apply for U visas, and I help look at DACA considerations in determining whether or not we move forward with a criminal charge or not. I do it every day. I don't just talk about it, I do it every day. I'm involved in reentry programs that get Latino men that I prosecuted years and years ago back into a community working with jobs connected to labor. I've kept in touch with every single person that's re-entered into our community, and I'm very proud of that relationship. We need to make sure that the Latino voices have a seat at the table, a meaningful seat at the table. And we have a lot of pride in the city of Long Beach from the Latino community. Look at our mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Jessica, for coming over and asking the question. So I'm going to go ahead and give you both a 1-minute closing, and I want to thank you again for coming over the bridge to see us all the way over here in San Pedro at our beautiful historic Warner Grand. So go ahead, Councilmember Suzie Price.
Thank you, everyone. I want to thank you all for being here and our hosts for opening up this space. I'm running for mayor because I believe that service to the residents of the city of Long Beach is critical. It is important that every resident in this city feel pride in the communities they live in, that they feel that they have provided for their families the best opportunity to thrive and excel in America. I'm running because I understood the American dream when I became a resident in America, and I know how important it is for everyone to feel that they have roots in a city that cares about them. I'm here because it's important for people to listen to the residents. Service over politics should be our fundamental principle as we lead our cities and our municipalities. I'm running for mayor because I believe in the city that I live in. I believe that the city that we have is one strong city, and that building bridges is far more effective for our city than building walls. I'm proud of the record that I've had, and I look forward to using a lot of the great things that have worked as a template throughout the city when it comes to service and helping people thrive. I thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, council member. Okay. Long Beach City Vice Mayor Rex Richardson, we'll let you close this off.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to join you today. I believe that the work we've done together in collaboration with community in our city has brought our community a long way and has helped prepare me to become Long Beach's next mayor. Long Beach City Council has come a long way, but it hasn't been without hard-fought challenges. Standing up to make sure we have a worker-friendly city, making sure that we have things like hero pay to protect our frontline workers, making sure that we have rights for tenants, making sure that we are standing up for housing and making the hard choices that we need to make. I spent every day making our city a better community to live in. When you look around North Long Beach, you see the results of when residents come together and make a difference. We created spaces to read, places to learn. We improved our air quality and restored our wetlands. We worked together to help shift the way we make decisions at City Hall. We demonstrated leadership on some of the city's some of the biggest challenges, like building our city's first shelter and taxing oil to invest in our climate action adaptation plan and creating our city's first youth fund. The question for me here is, what kind of future do we want for our city? We want a future where we have two very different experiences for children when they come,
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We are gonna take another 10-minute break, so we will be back in 10 minutes with our sheriff's candidates.